Hi, I'm Victor, the main organizer of the Full Stack Flutter conference. On this channel, we publish the best talks from the conference every week throughout the year, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. I'm also the founder of ServerPod, so if you want to build your backend in Dart, make sure to check that out. In this video, we get to talk from Eric Seidel. Eric is one of the founding members of the Flutter team when he worked for Google. Now, he is the founder of Shorebird, which makes it possible to push code changes to your already published apps. Let's go!
About code push for Flutter. So today you're going to learn what is code push. We're going to talk through adding code push to your Flutter app, and then we'll talk a little bit about how it works, the details behind it. So if we haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Eric Seidel. I started the Flutter project about a decade ago, and I led Flutter and Dart for most of that time. However, I left Google at the end of 2022, and I've since started a new company, Shorebird, where we're also working on Flutter, filling in some of the details, some of the problems that I couldn't fix while at Google. So at Shorebird, the first problem that we've chosen to fix is code push for Flutter. And if you haven't heard of code push is over-the-air instant updates for Flutter code direct to your users' devices. And the lack of this is actually a real problem for businesses, right? Because if you happen to ship a bug, which I've shipped a few bugs in my day, that can mean downtime for your app, that can mean lost revenue, that can mean terrible reviews. And so code push is a way so that you know that you can fix things quickly if they ever happen to go wrong. It lets your mobile team work a lot more like your web team does, where when you deploy your web app, you immediately know that all of your users are always using the latest and greatest version of your code. With code push, the same can be true for mobile, right? And the truth is that every large app on the store today uses code push just for this reality, particularly as you get larger and your install base gets larger. You have to wait longer and longer and longer for your users to update. Again, with code push, you don't have to. But if you look at the YouTubes, TikToks, Facebooks of the world, they all use their own, often hand-rolled code push solutions today. And this was a big piece missing for adoption for Flutter. While leading the Flutter team, I had countless customer conversations where this was a request, or businesses would tell me, well, we can't not use React Native, we can't move to Flutter until you have code push. Well, now you can. Code push, for example, the bug tracking this in GitHub is the most upvoted Flutter bug of all time. And in fact, it's one of the top 50 most upvoted GitHub issues of all time across all of GitHub. But unfortunately, this is not something that I was able to solve well at Google, and is not something that the Google Flutter team has plans to solve. So we did. Shorebird did. And by we, I mean, well, obviously myself, but also a whole team of experts that I've recruited from the Flutter community, including some of the names that you may actually recognize. So for example, Felix works with us. He created Block, he created Mason. Eric works with us. He created Flame. And also Brian, who worked intensely with many teams across Google to help them use Flutter at scale, similar to how Shorebird today works with so many businesses to help them be successful with Flutter. So now I want to show you a demo. So now I'm going to walk you through setting up Shorebird. Here I am at the shorebird.dev site where you can learn more about the product. What we're looking for is a getting started link or our console link. We're going to click through. That's going to take us to console.shorebird.dev, which is the management interface for Shorebird. So we've never been here before, so we're going to log in for the first time. You can log in with either Google or with Microsoft. I'm going to pick Google. Go ahead and click through the OAuth flow. And now we're in. Since we've never used Shorebird before, it's explaining to us the setup instructions, the steps that we would do to set up Shorebird on our machine and release our first app. So we're on a Mac, so we're going to copy this install command. I'm going to go to my terminal, and it's going to download and install Shorebird from GitHub. It shouldn't take very long. So there we go. Shorebird is installed. It tries to put it on your path, which it succeeded in doing. You can run Shorebird Doctor. just like with Flutter, to make sure that things are set up correctly and everything's set up correctly. And that's it. You now have Shorebird installed on your machine. So now that we have Shorebird installed on our machine, let's go ahead and add Shorebird to our app. So for this, I'm going to switch back over to Visual Studio Code. So here we have just a very little Flutter app. This is just the Namer app, which is part of the first Flutter Code Lab. Anyways, just imported into Visual Studio Code. In order to add Shorebird, we're going to use that command line that we just installed. So if I pull up the terminal inside Visual Studio Code, I can hide the... So we have our Shorebird command, right? Shorebird, right? It's there. So let's go ahead and type Shorebird init. It's going to go ahead and analyze our project, ask us what we want it to be called. And that's it. You're done. Your app now uses Shorebird. You just have to build and release, and you're done. What this did, if you check git status, is it created a shorebird.yaml file, and it edited your pubspec.yaml to make sure that your pubspec included the shorebird.yaml in the Flutter assets. It also edited your Android manifest to, if it didn't already include internet permission, to make sure that it has internet permission in order to talk to Shorebird. Let's go ahead and build a release of our app. So the way to do that is to type Shorebird release, and in this case it's going to be iOS. And this is going to build, it's going to use Flutter build IPA under the covers, and it's going to build a copy of your app, just including the Shorebird flavor of the Flutter engine rather than the stock one. The Shorebird flavor of the Flutter engine includes our updater code, which allows your app to be updated in production. Now that it's completed building, it's prompting you to tell you what it's done. And it's going to then take this artifact that it's built, and it's going to save it off on your Shorebird account so that it can be used later as part of making patches. And then it's going to point you to the resulting artifact and explain to you how you can go about distributing this to the store. Or typically, this whole flow of Shorebird release is run on your CI, and so this would just plug into how you would normally go about distributing. But here we're running it manually for demonstration purposes. Now that we've built a release, let's go ahead and try it on a device. Now you can obviously put it on a device in whatever your normal means would be, but a quick way that Shorebird provides is a little command called Shorebird preview. What Shorebird preview does is it allows you to see the catalog of releases that you've ever made with Shorebird and pull them down from the cloud storage that we've stored them for you and put them on a device. And so here it's pulling back this release that we just made, and it's putting it on my iOS device, which I'll switch over to now. So here's our release mode app launched through Shorebird Preview. It's an example from one of Flutter's code labs. But I've included a bug in this one that if you press the next button too many times, the app crashes. So now let's fix this for our users through Shorebird. Back in Visual Studio Code, if we look at the code to our app, we'll see, oops, somebody left in some debug code, and that slipped out into our release. So let's delete this debug code. And now the question is, how do we get this to our users? Well, that's where Shorebird comes in. So if we save this and go back to our terminal, we can go ahead and run Shorebird patch iOS. And what this has done is this has built a new copy of our app, and it's compared it with the copy that was stored from the previous Shorebird release, and then it's made a diff. It's made a diff in terms of what new code needs to be sent and what code that exists already in the app can be used. And it's telling you it was able to share 94% of the code on the CPU, which means the app will run very fast in production. It's made a small diff. And now it's prompting you to say, hey, are you ready to send this to your users? And so we're going to hit yes. And we're done. Now let's go and see the app update. So back on the device, if we launch our app again, Shorebird is silently updating the app in the background. So now this launch is still going to have the bug. See, it crashed. But if we launch it again, it'll use the updated copy. And now you can see the bug is fixed. We just solved the crash for all of our users instantly with Shorebird. So, to recap, things we covered in that demo, right? So this is code push for Flutter, right? You can update any amount of Dart code. That includes any change across anywhere in your app, including packages. This includes adding packages, removing packages, and these updates are sent out immediately to all devices in the field. The next time the device launches, or the next time your app launches, it will pull down the update, and the time that it launches after that, it will use the update. And this technology is production ready on iOS and Android today. In fact, we recently announced Shorebird 1.0. We're actually now at 1.1, but we announced Shorebird 1.0 about a month ago, and that included production support for iOS, which took us a long time to make, but we've actually been in production since May of last year for Android. And today we have thousands of users using Shorebird every month, and we ship millions of patches. And here's an example of one of many happy users. Kijiji is a very large app in Canada, and here is one of their devs talking about their success with Shorebird. So again, how does it work? What did we get to see? Right, so Shorebird again is a drop-in replacement for Flutter build. Specifically, you don't have to make any changes to either your code or your dev flow. If you have a large team and only one person handles releases, right, the rest of them don't even need to know that code push is a thing, other than they know that they can make a release much faster and more directly to users than they could before. And it works locally, whether you're using Flutter build locally or in your CI. And there is also an optional package on pub, Shorebird Code Push, which can allow you greater control in terms of controlling and configuring the Shorebird updater. We did a whole bunch of work here. Again, this is why it took it a year, particularly to bring to iOS. We have a whole custom Flutter engine, including a Shorebird updater. All of this part is all open source. We wrote an entirely new Dart compiler and interpreter. This is to comply with App Store guidelines. But the result is, again, that you can change and update any line of Dart code. You don't have to think ahead of time or know ahead of time where your bugs might occur, because anywhere there's Dart, you can replace it. We also, of course, did all the hard work to make sure that these patches are tiny, that we do differential patch support, so that patches that you're sending out to users are measured in bytes, not megabytes. And of course, the whole system is built on modern standards, modern cloud. We verify updates on devices today. We're actually in the process of rolling out code signing for updates as well. The whole system is also private by design. We never see your code. We never want to see your code. It never leaves your machines. We don't collect any data from your users, etc. And again, the whole system was designed to be safe. We know that shipping code is a very sensitive topic. The patches, again, are verified on device. If for some reason, somehow, through all the checks, something was to slip through, we also support automated rollback on a patch failure. And again, as I mentioned, we only host the public binaries that you are otherwise distributing. We do not ever see your source code. And of course, we track all the latest Flutter stable. We get all the security updates, etc. And we release our fork of Flutter within hours after Google does. The whole system is designed so that it is a seamless, costless integration for you to make, and that it should never be worse than your current setup. Another question that we commonly get is, how does this relate with the stores? So as I mentioned earlier, this is just what every large app does. Now, many of these large apps have written their own code push systems, but essentially, none of this code push is any different than what you could already do with a web view. There were things that we needed to do in order to comply with the technical restrictions on both stores. So for example, the Play Store only allows updates if they run inside a virtual machine or an interpreter, which we do. And similarly, we had to build an interpreter for Dart in order to comply with the App Store's interpreted code restriction. So you can learn more at our website, shorebird.dev. Shorebird is free to adopt. It's free to integrate today. It works great for small apps and single developers. And then also we have, I think, pretty generous pricing as you scale. We essentially our costs all boil down to the network and server and cloud costs. And so those we pass along with a markup to you. If you want to learn more, shorebird.dev is the QR code. And we also run the entire company publicly on Discord, which you can check out at the URLs above. Great to see you all. Look forward to seeing you on Discord.